G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today, we're here to talk about firmware and especially in this short video, the Z5, and it has new AF related firmware version 1.40. This is super exciting news, I think, for all Nikon users. And the reason being is there's this continued desire from Nikon to further update these cameras. And as some of you may know, the Z5 is heading on towards 3 years old. A little bit of history about the Z5. It is Nikon's entry-level full-frame camera. It's extraordinarily affordable, and it's got some features that I think some of its nearest competitors don't have. Its competitors have some features that it doesn't have too. So it's pros and cons, swings and roundabouts depending on who you are and what you shoot. But the Z5 with its in-body image stabilization and its 2 card slots, well, it kind of makes it a really super useful entry-level all-rounder. It does shoot 4K video with a crop, it does shoot 24 megapixels, and of course if you're a vlogger or you want to shoot streetscapes, cityscapes, you're on holiday and it's starting to get dark and you want to have that in-body image stabilization, well this camera, it can do all of that. And now it's had a firmware update that improves its focus. And this is super cool. Now let's think about it. We've just had for the Z50, which is a slightly older camera than the Z5, an IAF, as well as video IAF and just general AF improvement firmware. This just happened a week or so ago. And it looks like this firmware update for the Z5 is very similar. Now, it's happened a couple of days ago, and I have seen in the comments on my videos, as well as in the comments on Nikon Rumors over the last few days, that people have installed this firmware update on their Z5s. And anecdotally, so we just have to remember, anecdotally, they are suggesting that the performance of their Z5 is now on par or similar to their Z6 II. This is really exciting. I mean, what is Nikon doing here? And well, what they're doing is awesome stuff. The support that they're showing for all the cameras that they still make, and maybe I think there was even one had a firmware update recently that I'm not sure if it's even being made anymore, but the team behind the firmware that looks after all of the Z cameras, as well as a few F cameras, they continue to bring us firmware upgrades. Now the fact that the Z5, which as I said is the entry-level 35mm camera for the Z mount, has had a firmware update that might bring it up to Z6 II levels, what does this say for the Z6 II and the Z7 II? Who knows? But if we talk about this from an historical perspective, a timeline perspective, we've got a firmware update for the Z50, which is older than the Z5, a few weeks ago. We've now got the Z5, which is near on 3 years old now, and the Z6 II and the Z7 II, well, they are younger cameras. So could it be that Nikon is actually doing the right thing, and that is rolling out firmware based on when these cameras were released? Now, let's just for a second not forget the fact that the Z6 II and the Z7 II have had firmware updates. Yes, they have. And these are great updates. They just haven't necessarily been the updates that everybody wants. Some people actually want to see more features added, and that's fine. I get it. A lot of these features I don't even ever use. So this may be some of what's around some of Nikon's thinking. They basically just simply have to prioritize things. And of course, I know people like to think that Nikon is a Z9 only company. And I still find, at the end of the day, I actually find this statement near on offensive because they're actually doing quite a lot of work behind the scenes and under the bonnet for supporting a whole range of cameras. Like we've probably seen firmware over the last 12 months for something like 10 different cameras, along with the Z9. And of course, yes, it's easy to say that the Z9 has had a lot of updates, but I think there's some pretty simple and logical reasons for that. Number one being, I would say the team of engineers, software engineers that work on the firmware, the team for the XPEED 7 is probably a different team for the XPEED 6. It's possible that the processor architectures are quite different. Certainly the feature set is very different. And ultimately, you would want to have experts in XPEED 6 and experts in XPEED 7. Now, of course, software engineers are amazing and they could jump between teams, but it is more efficient to keep your experts working on what they're expert in rather than having to train them on the job. And so when we think about the fact that the Z9 has had, yes, a lot of firmware updates in a short space of time, well, right now, in essence, there is a dedicated team. From my perspective, this is my guess, that there's a dedicated XPEED 7 team, and they can get stuff out more frequently because they are just working on one camera. And you have another team, the dedicated XPEED 6 team, and they are working on, well, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cameras. And we are seeing these regular firmware updates coming for this whole range of XPEED 6 cameras. And we're probably seeing, well, we are seeing more firmware updates if you count every single one for every single camera coming out of the XPEED 6 team. And of course, well, the XPEED 7 team is doing great stuff for the Z9. And they work separately, and they're obviously working with extraordinarily different processing power. As we know, it's a 10 times difference. And they're working with extraordinarily different hardware. So, you know, it's just different. And I don't really think we should be comparing them. They would be different teams. Now, another thing I've heard said about all of this, and the XPEED 7 team, they're going to be working on the Z9, but they're also going to be working on what's next. I've talked about this before. There's no company, and they're, you know, for profit. So thus, there is no for-profit company in the world that says, that's it, no more products, we are stopping here. Of course, XPEED 7 is the future for Nikon, and XPEED 8 will be after that. Who knows, that might be another 10 years away, whatever. But companies are always marching forwards. And we will see more cameras, and I'm guessing the fruits of all of the Z9 firmware and the Z9 labor, they'll also be working on whatever's next. Of course they will. And for any of us to think there's not a whatever's next this year, I mean, I would be very surprised if we don't see more cameras soon. And as I said in a recent video, my best guess is it's going to be sometime in Nikon's next financial year, which starts in April. And, you know, maybe we'll see something in that first quarter. Let's hope that next financial year, which is starting soon, is just filled with new releases to make that financial year look fantastic. So we've got, from my perspective, an XPEED 6 firmware team who've just delivered this awesome Z5 update, giving us improvements in AF performance. And there'll be a separate team that continues to bring things to us for the Z9 and for whatever else. Let's talk about the details of the Z5 firmware 1.40. Firstly, Nikon have added support for iOS version of NX Mobile Air. Use NX Mobile Air versions 1.0.4 or later. Now, one of the things that I'm most excited about is the addition of support on the Z5, their entry-level full-frame camera, for the MC-N10. Here it is here. I love this little device. Check out my video about it up there. If you're a videographer, it makes the process of videoing, whether you're on a rig, this style of rig over the shoulder, or whether you are on some sort of fluid head, it's great that this is being rolled out to further full-frame cameras in the Z range. This would make me think, seeing as it's gone to the Z5, that we will see it, because I don't think it's on the Z6 and the Z7 yet, but I think there's signposts that will happen when those engineers have time to add it, because all of these cameras are slightly different, and it's fair enough. You've got to do it, and you've got to do it meticulously. Something I wanted to talk about when it comes to firmware updates that people might not realize is you kind of go, oh, it's just a minor update. Indeed, it's minor, but you have to do bug testing. So every time they make a new candidate, a new release version, they would give it to X number of engineers, Nikon employees, to, you know, might be a team of 10 or 20 or 5, who knows. And they have to attempt to find any bugs in this latest version of code. And of course, that bug testing process in itself would take a little while. And if any bugs are found, you've got to go through the whole process again. Error testing, bug testing, it's a little bit like these videos that I put together. I will render them out and then I have to watch them to make sure that everything's correct. And if there's a single error, you have to stop, go back into your software, fix the error, render it again, and watch it all again, just to make sure that a glitch or some sort of problem hasn't occurred. That's happened once, that I've done a render that didn't fail, but it actually had a glitch in it. That video is actually still up. Can't remember which one it is. But this is something that I don't think people realize. This is software that rolls out to hundreds of thousands of cameras, and it has to work. Failing is not really an option. So error testing, bug testing may well take more human hours than it does to actually do minor bug fixes or minor updates. And I think we all have to continue to be mindful of just the overhead for providing ongoing firmware updates. It just takes time. All right, let's go back to those Z5 features. Nikon have also added support for the ML-L7 remote controls. Now, I think something that a lot of people will be excited to see is that IAF, so the little yellow box around your eye, has been added to video recording. Save focus position and recall focus position have been added to the roles that can be assigned using custom setting F2 custom controls in the custom setting menu. As of February 14th, 2023, these options were supported with the following lenses, and these are all Z lenses: 70-200, 100-400, 400 2.8, 400 4.5, and 800 6.3. And this is something that those people who like high-speed eye detect improved eye detection performance in auto area AF. Improved the refresh rate for the focus points displayed in live view during subject tracking and face eye detection. Now, there's always been a little bit of a debate that was Nikon's focus fast in the past and it was just a little box that was slow, or was it both? The advantage of this update is whether it was or wasn't, it appears to be addressing everything. The behavior of autofocus during memory recall has been improved to ensure that the focus position will not change in any focus mode, even if the shutter release button is pressed halfway while focus recall is in progress. And one bug fix, which is fixed an issue that sometimes caused the camera to stop responding when auto was selected for set picture control in the photo shooting menu. Super exciting stuff. It's absolutely fabulous to see Nikon continue to provide a huge number, if you think about it, a huge number of firmware updates. We're getting them for lenses, we're getting them for cameras. These are genuine improvements. In most of the cases of these firmware updates, making these products better cameras than they were before. Nobody can be unhappy about that. And hopefully from a time perspective, the Z50 was older than the Z5, and the Z5 is older than the Z6 II and the Z7 II. Maybe we've got a pattern of firmware updates coming. Maybe, who knows? And maybe that means something in that space. Who knows? Some people are actually happy now with sort of the autofocus performance. I think most people that I hear from are actually fine with it. And it's actually features, more features that they would like to see added. So please, this is your part in this video. In the comments below, let me know what sort of features would you like to see added to any of the Z cameras. It's a really interesting thing to me because a lot of these features I don't use. I haven't even thought about using them. I kind of don't know that some of them even exist. So please, I would love to hear more about extra features to be added to the cameras, whether it's the Z6 II or Z7 II or any other camera. Maybe they should all have similar features. I suppose that makes sense. Just like this sort of thing being added. Please let me know your thoughts below on what Nikon are up to with firmware. What do you think is going to happen next when it comes to XPEED 6 firmware and XPEED 7 firmware? And if you're a Z5 owner, are you excited about this update? I certainly would be. It's been so good to see you, and if this is your first time here, I would love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. Bye for now.